So this is the Andromeda Galaxy, huh? Something seems a little off. Whoa! Well, now that I'm 600 years out of cryosleep, we're finally here at the Andromeda Galaxy. Hopefully there's tons of new cool things to discover. Kind of seems like, I don't know, almost kind of seems like it's the same. Like, we never really left the humble abode of our galaxy. I don't know, let's just take a look out the window. Yeah, it's the same. As I've said, Mass Effect Andromeda takes place 634 years between the events of Mass Effect 2 and Mass Effect 3. After all those long years in cryo, you wake up to exactly what people thought the Andromeda Galaxy was gonna be like. It's all nice and rosy, right? Okay, yeah, okay. You're right. It all goes to hell. It turns out that almost everything that the Andromeda Initiative thought about our nearest galaxy was completely false, and they woke up to disaster. For one, there's nasty, bony aliens called the Ket walking around shooting at literally anything that aren't other Ket. There's this weird cosmic phenomenon called the Scourge that traps and damages ships that can be found all over the Helios cluster. And of course, there's a race of ancient machines scattered throughout the cluster that, interestingly enough, aren't necessarily malevolent. On top of that, you aren't the first of the arcs to arrive in Andromeda, and the amount of time that it took you to arrive at the Nexus, the hub for all the Milky Way inhabitants, a lot of stuff has gone down, because it's been over 14 months. The premise, other than visiting a whole other galaxy, is really actually pretty interesting. It's kind of like you showed up to a party late and you're like, hey, whoa, I kind of don't know what's going on. But the people who run the party also have no idea what's going on. In this new galaxy, you take the role of Scott or Sarah Ryder, who are the ones to take up the torch after the departure of Commander Shepard. The Riders are different in the sense that they're less experienced and were not actually suited for the job of Pathfinder that was relayed to them because of unfortunate circumstance. You know, like in every single BioWare game. Scott Ryder is an excited, outgoing person that just can't wait to go out there and discover a new galaxy. Depending on how he is played, he can come off as compassionate, logical, professional, or my favorite, unprofessional / casual / a jokester. Sarah has a few different lines here and there, but gets the same general choices that Scott does. Now, while you can choose different ways to deliver lines, they always amount to the same thing being said. In a sense, it's a lot like Fallout 4, where you don't really have that many choices in dialogue. You really only have yes, no, a sarcastic yes, and a question. Now, I personally don't really like it that way. It kind of gives you this weird facade of choice when you're really not making a choice. It's just kind of picking what sort of flavor of text do you want. Now, granted, with me, the flavor of text usually means making dumb jokes and just stupid ass remarks, and that's kind of how I am in real life. But because of the hopeful or humorous nature, it never feels like Ryder takes the situation seriously. At times, when grave news is brought to him or her, they just sort of brush it off and continue to keep going on, like nothing happened. That being said, I enjoyed Scott Ryder a lot more than I did Sarah Ryder. Tom Taylorson, the guy who voice acts for Scott, comes off a lot more charming and a much more enjoyable character to play. It's no secret by now that you might have seen dozens of videos of all the weird dialogue delivery out of Sarah, which is unfortunately matched with really questionable animations. Unfortunately, when it comes to writing, BioWare really dropped the ball on Andromeda. Throughout the game, there's tons of cringy lines, odd scenarios, and flat writing, from the lowliest of side quests to most of the main plot. The main plot basically follows Ryder trying to find a home for all the Milky Way inhabitants while setting up outposts and dealing with unknowns. Unknown which really end up being two sentient species in the same four critters to fight. The big baddie in the Helios cluster is the Archon, who leads the Ket in Helios. Archon is dead set on figuring out the secrets of the Remnant, an old race of machines that have facilities all over the cluster that wield an untold amount of power. The issue with Archon is that you'd barely see him in the game. There is parts where I'd go on and play for 10 hours without seeing or interacting with the guy. He has around the same amount of screen time as Saren from the first Mass Effect, but it feels like something is missing from the Archon's performance. With Saren, you can be sympathetic towards him because he's a flawed character that wants to save the galaxy, albeit by questionable means. Archon, on the other hand, just says, "Hey, you're pretty dumb," and disappears for like half the game without a peep. But it has to do with the main plot and how unintentionally short and long it is at the same time. I mean, it's both short and long because of how they lay out the locations and by extension, the planets in Andromeda. In Andromeda, you get a few expansive worlds to go visit that are filled with more detail than the barren maps of Mass Effect 1. If I had to compare, I would say they are most similar to the maps of Dragon Age Inquisition. In each area, there's tons of quests that make you romp around in the Nomad, which is the beefier yet not as powerful cousin to the Mako. Now, this new approach that they did to planets, I actually really enjoy. By the time that you're done doing all the missions on the planet and you get it colonized, you really got a feel for what this planet is. It's just a shame that the main quest kind of takes a back seat. By the time you're done doing all the missions and you've done all these great things for the planet, you almost kind of wonder yourself like, why was I here again? So really, if you take away all the other stuff to do on a planet and just focus on the main quest, you'll quickly find out that there really isn't that much to the main plot and it's actually really short. And when you can do literally every other quest in an area before you advance, it loses any sense of urgency. And when you kind of lose all sense of urgency, the big issues kind of feel moot, or at least that's kind of how Ryder comes off. The only real planet that allows the main mission to flourish is Havarl, which is a jungle planet that's slowly dying. Havarl is a small world compared to the others, so all the quests are close together and there's less of them, and they're all tied to the decaying nature of the planet. So all throughout exploring Havarl, which is one of the prettiest planets in the game, you know what your purpose is on this world, and when it's fulfilled, it's, well, honestly, fulfilling. It's just a shame that the plot doesn't really pick up till the end of the game. But once it does pick up, oh man, hang on to your butts, because it's going to be a wild ride. The ending to this game is actually pretty great, and it sets up a really nice platform for future games in Andromeda, which we all know is going to happen eventually. The few worlds near the end are actually really beautiful, which is kind of surprising since every facet of this game's presentation, other than the world design, gets the ugly end of the stick. Yeah, by now you're probably not surprised at all the weird animations, ugly ass models, and awful effects. And you're wondering probably, does it get any better the longer you go through the game? And the answer is like, I really don't know if it actually gets better, or if you're just so stuck in the ugly boat for so long that you just get used to it. Yeah, definitely used to it. But the ugly models and animation are just another step in this downward spiral into mediocrity. The technical issues range anywhere from texture pop-in to models loading in the middle of a conversation, or hell, sometimes the model switching to their T-pose. For those that don't know what a T-pose is, it's basically a neutral pose that animators use to get the full look and dimension of the model. A lot of times when there's no animation that's loaded into the model, will default into a T-pose, and when it happens it always gives you a good laugh. Makes them look like they have their arms stretched out and they're like an airplane or something. On top of that, there's times when models get stuck behind the environment or they'll be missing a texture like this Krogan right here.
Hey, you're the guy Walton Simons was talking about.
Yeah?
Good luck. We're 100% black.
Me too.
Now, while BioWare says they're gonna fix a lot of these bugs, there's one thing that they can't quite fix, and that's awful writing. Kinda like this show! Now, I feel a lot of the worst lines are relayed over to Sarah Ryder because some of the things she says are downright cancerous.
I'm really glad you volunteered to join our crew, by the way. I am too. New galaxy and all. I'm honored to be here. No, I mean, I think you're cute and I like seeing you up here. Oh my goodness, Ryder! Also, the accent. The accent is, I mean, it's not the only thing, but, okay, I should just go over there to the piloting thing.
Kill me now.
Some of the squad mates are just as bad, with PB being the absolute worst, to the point where after the first scene I never brought her in my squad and never cared to finish her loyalty mission. But eventually everyone gets a cringy line of dialogue, just like this good old gem from Liam Costa.
I think I really pissed that one off. Maybe because I shot him in the face.
That being said, not all the squad mates and not all the characters are terrible. For one, there's one character I really enjoy, and his name is Drac, a nice good old Krogan. Now I'm not gonna lie, Drac is sort of an easy one because everyone loves a goddamn Krogan in their squad. Though Drac's a little different in the sense that he's the oldest Krogan we have been around, about the ripe old age of 1400 years. So he remembers things like the Krogan Rebellion and the early days of the Genophage, a disease that prevents Krogan children from being born. Overall, Drac is what you would expect from the Krogan, but with a little twist. If I had to compare him, he's kind of like the Iron Bull from Dragon Age Inquisition. My second favorite squad mate is Jaal, the local friendly neighborhood Angaran envoy. The Angar are one of the species local to the Helios cluster in Andromeda, and partway through the story you get one of them, him being Jaal. Jaal is someone who's been fighting the Ket menace for his entire life, and has grown rather old of it. Like all Angara, he's very straightforward with his emotions, and you definitely get to see it over the course of the game. At first, Jaal was one of those characters that I didn't think I'd like in a cast of already kind of dubious characters. You feel like he's never gonna trust you, but at the first signs when he finds out that you're not a bad dude, he grows on you. But we got the best for last. Oh, Vetra, my sweetheart. As you can probably tell, Vetra is probably my favorite squad mate in the game. Out of this menagerie of just weird, autistic squad mates that are just plain weird or downright awful, like PB, Vetra comes out on top as a nice, prime waifu material. She comes off as very kind, quirky in a good way where she isn't obnoxious, and seems to genuinely care for the Pathfinder. The others come off as they have an obligation to worry about your safety because you're the Pathfinder, and that is a legitimate reason. Vetra genuinely worries about your safety because she's your friend, or in my case, the waifu that the Pathfinder has been waiting for 600 years. And hell, she's actually got quite a lot of nice banter between Drac and Jaal.
I'll be glad when this is over. I'm going to have a long shower with some newly procured fancy soaps.
Waste of water. What you need is a good old-fashioned Krogan dust bath.
Sometimes this game can genuinely surprise you with its writing. A lot of the times it's downright awful, but at times there's a moment where I'll let out a good old laugh. Most of the time it's just soft banter, but sometimes there are some scenes that just make my sides go up into space.
Heads up, looks like a Ket construct.
You're a long way from the flock, little duck.
Little duck? Who is this?
Someone who's got work for you. Come to my nav point, if you think you're up for it.
Wanna check it out, little duck?
That is not becoming a thing.
And that sort of greatness in an otherwise uninteresting setting is ultimately what I would describe Mass Effect Andromeda as. There are so many things that Andromeda does that I think are new and interesting that really push the franchise forward. Like the wholly improved combat mechanics that are so much more fluid than Mass Effect 3, or the interesting setting. There's a whole lot of good to go around. Issue is there's also a whole lot of bad and downright awful to go around as well. The ugly ass character models, the bugs, the clipping issues, the animations that I'm almost convinced is done by a North Korean animation studio. And worst and most insulting of all is the fact that the writing is so horrendous that it makes you want to put one of these up to your goddamn temple. So it's with sadness, and I'm kind of disappointed to say, but Mass Effect Andromeda gets a very underwhelming 6 out of 10. We've made the trek into a brand new galaxy with new opportunities, but like the Andromeda Initiative, we're off to a rocky start. While the new things are interesting, the game is just mired in a whole load of issues, some that can be patched out like the bugs, and some like writing that you can only really improve on a sequel. Though the prospect of future games look promising, there's quite a few plot threads that could lead into new games that would be very interesting to follow. But will it get better once the sequel rolls around? I don't know, I guess